Commissioner's Rule R4-281103, the core of broker supervision. As we move forward from the foundation established in Section 1, we now shift from understanding why policies exist to how they are actively implemented in your brokerage. At the center of this discussion is AAC R4-281103, the most important rule governing broker supervision in Arizona. This rule is not theoretical, it is operational. It defines what brokers must do on a daily basis to remain compliant and protect their business. Under this rule, the designated broker is responsible for exercising reasonable supervision and control over all real estate activity. In 2026, this expectation has become even more structured, with ADRE emphasizing documented systems, consistent enforcement, and accountability across all agents and teams. If Section 1 was about building the policy manual, Section 2 is about bringing it to life. Review and manage transactions. Every transaction in your brokerage flows through your supervision system. This includes listings, purchase contracts, addenda, disclosures, and closing documents. The broker must ensure that each transaction is complete, accurate, and compliant with Arizona law. In practice, this means implementing a review process that catches errors before they become violations. Missing signatures, incorrect dates, incomplete disclosures, or inconsistent terms can all create liability under ARS paragraph 32-2153. Example: an agent submits a purchase contract without the required seller property disclosure statement, SPDS. If the file is not reviewed and the transaction proceeds, the brokerage may face a complaint for failure to disclose material information. This directly ties into case law such as Hill v. Jones, 1986, where failure to disclose known defects resulted in liability. A strong brokerage will implement a checklist-based review system, often through platforms like SkySlope, ensuring that no file moves forward until required documents are verified. Manage the filing and storage of records. Transaction management does not end at closing. Brokers are required to maintain records in accordance with ARS, paragraph 32-2151.01, which mandates proper retention of all transaction documents. This includes contracts, disclosures, employment agreements, and compensation records. In 2026, digital storage is the standard, but compliance still requires that records are complete, accessible, and organized. Example: if ADRE audits your brokerage and you cannot produce a complete file, it is treated the same as if the document never existed. A missing document is a violation, even if the transaction itself was otherwise compliant. Your policy manual should clearly define how documents are stored, how long they are retained, and who is responsible for maintaining them. Oversee delegation of duties. Delegation is a necessity in modern brokerages, especially those managing large teams or high transaction volume. However, delegation does not remove responsibility. Under R4-281103, the broker may delegate tasks such as file review or training, but the broker remains ultimately responsible for the outcome. This is one of the most misunderstood areas of broker supervision. Example: a delegated associate broker is assigned to review contracts but fails to catch a compliance issue. ADRE will not discipline only the delegate. The designated broker remains accountable for inadequate supervision. This is why policies must clearly define roles, responsibilities, and oversight procedures for anyone acting on behalf of the broker. Familiarize salespersons and associate brokers with policies. A policy manual is only effective if it is understood and followed. Brokers are required to ensure that all licensees are familiar with the brokerage's policies, procedures, and expectations. This includes onboarding, training, and ongoing education. In 2026, this often includes digital training modules, compliance meetings, and documented acknowledgments from agents. Example: an agent claims they were unaware of a disclosure requirement. ADRE will not accept this as a defense if the broker cannot show that training and policy acknowledgement were provided. This ties directly into ARS paragraph 32-2153, where failure to properly supervise and train agents can lead to disciplinary action. Review and inspect documents. Beyond transaction review, brokers must actively inspect documents to ensure accuracy and compliance. This includes verifying that information is not misleading, incomplete, or inconsistent. This requirement also connects to AAC R4-281101, which requires licensees to exercise reasonable care and ensure that material information is communicated accurately. Example: an agent inputs incorrect square footage into the MLS. If the broker's system does not catch this, it could be considered misrepresentation, especially if it impacts a buyer's decision. Inspection systems should include both automated checks and human review to ensure accuracy across all documents and marketing materials. ARS, paragraph 32.21 BMC 1.02, Broker Accountability and Oversight. This statute reinforces the broker's obligation to maintain control over all real estate activity conducted under their license. It emphasizes accountability for actions taken by licensees within the brokerage. In 2026, ADRE has continued to focus on broker responsibility as the central point of enforcement. The question is no longer who made the mistake, but what system allowed the mistake to happen. Example: if multiple agents in a brokerage repeatedly violate advertising rules, ADRE will look at the broker's policies and enforcement, not just individual agent behavior. ARS, paragraph 32.2127d, Place of Business and Operational Control. This statute requires brokers to maintain a place of business and ensure that operations are conducted in a manner that allows for proper supervision. With the rise of virtual brokerages and remote work, this requirement has evolved. Brokers must still maintain control over operations, even if agents are working remotely. Example: a fully virtual brokerage must still demonstrate how it supervises transactions, reviews documents, and enforces policies. Technology does not eliminate responsibility. It changes how it is executed. Advertising. AAC. R4-28502. Advertising remains one of the most common sources of ADRE complaints. Under AAC R4-28502, all advertising must clearly and prominently display the brokerage's name and must not be misleading or deceptive. This rule has become even more important with the rise of social media, AI-generated content, and team branding. Example: a team advertises a property on Instagram using only the team name without clearly displaying the brokerage name. This is a direct violation, and the broker is responsible for ensuring compliance. This also ties back to Substantive Policy Statement 2025.03, which reinforces that teams must advertise in a way that clearly identifies the employing broker. Additional comment: the real risk in 2026. The biggest shift in 2026 is not new laws, it is enforcement. ADRE is focusing heavily on patterns of behavior, brokerage systems, and the effectiveness of supervision. Brokers who operate without clear policies, consistent enforcement, and documented systems are at the highest risk. On the other hand, brokers who implement structured processes, train their agents, and enforce compliance consistently are in the strongest position to avoid complaints and disciplinary action. As we move into the next section, we will take these supervision requirements and apply them directly to real-world brokerage operations, including transaction workflows, compliance systems, and risk management strategies that you can implement immediately. Online discussion. Why does ADRE focus more on systems and supervision rather than individual mistakes? Answer: because consistent violations often indicate a failure in broker supervision. ADRE evaluates whether the broker had systems in place under R4-28-1103 to prevent errors, not just whether an individual made a mistake. How does delegation create risk for a designated broker? Answer: delegation does not remove responsibility. If a delegated broker fails to catch an issue, the designated broker is still accountable for inadequate supervision. Why is advertising one of the most common areas of violations? Answer: because it is highly visible, frequently updated, and often created quickly without proper review. This increases the likelihood of errors, omissions, or non-compliance with R4-28502.